Welcome to the Real Estate Show on KMED. It is July the 23rd of 2016. Pete Belcaster and Joe Brett, the Real Estate Guys, with you. We're both real estate brokers with John L. Scott in Southern Oregon, and we get together with you once a week here on KMED to talk about all sorts of real estate-related market issues and topics, things that affect all of us in Jackson and Josephine County. The goal every week is, well, we want you to be the smart real estate consumer that we know that our listeners here on KMED are. You can't be here 7 years talking, Joe, the way we do to some great guests and not be smart real estate consumers, right? Well, we get called. People tell us that.
It's hyper-local information right up to the moment each week that these folks bring with us. And it's just, it's as media guys, you just take a lot of pride in that and the fact that there's really good information shared for folks. That's why you're supposed to have local media outlets.
That's what radio is. A good thing for radio. Well, today, if when you buy or sell, one of the things always in a transaction that you have to deal with is the home inspection, right? I mean, you just got to deal with those things, and smart for both the buyer and the seller to have a home inspection. But if anything in our years of in real estate now, which is almost a decade, by the way, you and I, boy, home inspections can knock things sideways and deals can go down and people get crazy about it sometimes. But they're real, and you have to learn to deal with the home inspection. Who better to talk to us than the Rogue Valley Association of Realtors and Dan Huckins, who's an instructor with RVAR, and so he talks to realtors all the time about this. It's a crazy business you're in, I have to tell you that, Dan.
It is. It is.
Yeah. All right. What's it been like for you? I mean, in our shows, we've been talking about this market. April, May, and June, those were 3 huge busy months in real estate in Jackson and Josephine counties. My God, hundreds of millions of dollars in real estate sales. That must put great pressure on house inspectors. So what's it been like for you? Tell us that.
We've been swamped. We've been absolutely swamped. You know, it used to be, they used to always say, you had a 10-day inspection period. And we've been really telling people, go for at least 15 if you can, because one of the hardest things is trying to get an inspector scheduled within your time frame and still have time to get estimates or do other things that you need to do before your deadline.
So we've always been taught, haven't we? I mean, you when you write a real estate transaction, you're talking with a buyer. We're going to put down 10. You got 10 business days to get an inspection done. You're saying that may not happen anymore. You need to be aware of that. That's going to give yourself more time then.
Oh, there's times when we're booked out 3 weeks now.
Jeez,
so it just the more time you can get ahead of time, the better. So
that echoes what Guy Giles said on the lending side, is that the appraisers are also backed up in similar fashion, and they are asking for more time to close loans right now just because of the time it takes to get these due diligence factors done and cleared.
Yeah, well, there's a lot happening there. What are the things that you're seeing here? When we're here sitting in the summer of 2016, Dan, and when you're doing inspections, what are the kind of the big things that you're seeing that seem to be common themes as you do inspections around the valley?
Well, the whole marijuana industry has changed things a lot.
Okay, that's one. Yeah,
we get nice views from rooftops at all the everybody's little.
People
in their backyards. Yeah.
It should not affect a home inspection. Hopefully, with that. But okay, you see that. But what is that? I mean, are people taking care of them? Tell me, are people more aware of what's going to happen? Or when you talk to clients, I mean, you're obviously in the front line of this thing.
Well, to most people think their house is better than it really is. But I mean, things change around them slowly, and so they don't really see things changing and happening. So it's very common to talk to somebody and are there any issues you're aware of? No, everything's great.
Everything works. That's
right.
I heard. Everything works. No, everything works great. It's no problems. Okay.
But it's just, every home has issues. It's just that, a lot of people don't recognize this particular condition as being an issue.
Right, okay.
And to a home inspector, they just, after so many years, they just jump out at you. You look at a house and it's like, there. You're seeing these things that don't jump out to a lot of people. So
yeah. One of the things, Joe, that Dan brought up to me, which is really good because I'm going through this, and trying to price my house, to be able to sell it, to right size myself. And I'm freaking out over. I know when I get a home inspection, I've lived there 25 years. I'm comfortable there. I don't feel the deck. My deck, the boards creaking. I don't feel that, but somebody else does when they come in. And Dan says what I should do, and I thought about it, I didn't even know they did them, is like a pre-sale inspection that I, as a seller, can have Dan come. And okay, tell me what you would do in a pre-sale inspection that would benefit me as a seller going into a sale.
Well, a pre-sale inspection, I mean, basically it's just a regular inspection, but the benefit to a person selling their home, a lot of times a buyer's inspection will find some issue that the seller didn't know about, and then it puts a big, and sometimes the deal doesn't go through. And so by having a pre-sale inspection, you can often avoid a lot of those surprises because you're aware of the stuff ahead of time, and not everybody takes that information and fixes everything and delivers the perfect house. But at least you're aware of it. You can fix the things you want to fix. Don't fix
or
the
adjust
things you
your
don't
price
want
if you want to acknowledge or accommodate that. And also, you're having the home inspected for you. You're not the buyer having you as the seller's home inspected. You're the seller. Yeah. He's working for you, and instead of that information coming back to you in bits and pieces and then having to be dealt with, you're out in front of that curve.
Well, I think the worst thing is when you have an inspection. Say I'm the buyer, and we do the home inspection. The worst thing to me is that you're going to go back to the seller, and here's all these things you want changed or done.
Oh, the list.
The list. Some lists that I've seen are oh my goodness. And some have actually been absolutely amazingly done well.
Right.
But the lists, it goes on and on and on. And I don't know how you
had one deal
balance that.
I had one deal that asked for all 22 things on the list to be done to get the deal done.
Well, different types of loans, and as an inspector, I don't get into that. A lot of people will say, well, will my lender accept this? I don't know.
Ask your lender.
Yeah. Right. And some of them are more picky. I've inspected houses before where they wanted every single thing on the inspection report fixed right down to a cracked light switch cover.
Yeah, I've seen that too. My guide, when with my clients, I basically, and see if I'm right here with this, I tell them that if it's an issue of health and safety, then I think that the seller should repair it or get it fixed or give me credit to get it fixed. Correction? If it's health and safety things, say there was the stairs or something are all crooked or they're bad or something whatever like that is. But if it's little things like you said, cosmetic things, I said, well, you can fix it yourself. You wouldn't want to knock the deal over because of that. Is that kind of a way to do that? Yeah.
Well, and those little things like that aren't going to be a deal breaker.
Well,
typically,
yeah. Yeah.
Maybe to the lender, but not to the parties involved. Most of those little things like that. However, summaries, an inspection summary. Now, I personally, and all inspectors are different. They have their own reporting methods and the way they do it and stuff. To me, I've never really done a summary along with my report, just because people would say, well, can't you just do a summary of everything?
Summary, yeah.
And I say, well, what would I put in there? Well, the most important things. Well, the most important to who? Because what could be nothing to this person could be the skies falling to somebody else. Yeah. So how do you know what's important? So I just think read it all.
Do you, Dan? By the way, we're talking with Dan Huckins from Visual Home Inspections today on the Real Estate Show. Today's show presented by the Rogue Valley Association of Realtors at roguevalleyrealtors.org. Pre-sale inspections. Do you do many of them, by the way? Is that something?
I do.
You do? I'm good. I got to do this. I got to do this.
We're doing more and more of them, and it used to be, one a month, very seldom, but more and more. Now it's probably one a week, sometimes more than one a week.
And so
I think some higher level price houses where people maybe have the wherewithal to do those pre-inspections. That's where a lot of the activity in the market is $250,000 and above, where folks have pretty good amount of money on the line, and really it's worth their while and a few $100s to get that information.
Well, but that's all relative. To how much where a person is.
Yeah, what do you think your home is as your home is done there? If you don't think it is, but certainly what's good about it to have the inspection. And by the way, for 6 months, a buyer, if you're the seller and you have the pre-home inspection, okay, the pre-sale inspection, and a buyer may go ahead and just accept that report also if you've done some things to it. So they may not have to have the inspection done for them if they choose that. But what's interesting is that in the pre-sale inspection, as the seller, I'm going to have that information that I don't have if I don't do it, and I can adjust my price, or say I've made my price accordingly based upon the inspection of the house also. Yep. So it gives you more ammunition in terms of setting your price correctly, that someone will come along and pay it.
And
that makes
to
the most
justify
sense.
that when it comes up in the negotiation.
That's a great way to justify the price that you come to.
By the way, my buyer's going to get his own home inspection. Thank you. That's just
fine.
due diligence.
Well, you can. I'm saying, but for 6 months,
I'm sure yours is a nice report, but I'd like to have my own from my buyer.
Within 6 months, you can certainly accept that home inspection report. You don't have to, but you can.
We'll take that into consideration.
I think it's always important, I think, for everybody to get their own inspection, just because you don't know what the parameters of that inspection was. You don't, not every inspector is the same, and not every inspection is the same. I've had people buying a house and saying, well, we're wondering if there's foundation issues. And the seller has an engineer's report that says everything's wonderful. Well, you don't know if he hired that engineer, that structural engineer, to just walk around the house and say, you see any cracks in the foundation? Everything looks good. Right. He may not have even gone in the crawl space. So you don't know what the parameters of that inspection was.
Yeah, absolutely. So, well, I did a pre-sale showing, trying to get ready for this in terms of, so I set a price. Actually, the agents at John L. Scott, someone was looking for a particular property in the area that fit my house, So I wrote back and I said, here's the price. Have them drive by, and if they want to see it, I'd be happy to show it to them. So they did. They wanted to see it. So I spent 3 days, killed myself, getting it ready to show. And they came in and they went through it, and they thought that my price was too high. Mm-hmm. And so, I started looking at it again, and they're probably correct. And so I had to adjust myself back with that downward, because before I do put it on the market, I've got to be able to get it right, because I don't want it to languish. Because it was interesting, in fact, this week on the thing, 57% of the MLS sales, by the way, in Jackson County, it's Jackson County only, 57% of the sales in June were done in less than 30 days.
Wow, man.
At John L. Scott, there were 77%.
That were in contract
in 30 days. That's amazing.
And then it took a little while for the home inspections and the
appraisals
to get done, and the lending to come through.
And they're going to throw the whole thing,
But we're in contract.
But we're in contract, within 30 days.
Well, you used to hear about things in the cities or California and stuff. People say a bidding war, and it's like, really, a bidding war? Why would I ever pay more than they're asking for the house? We're there.
Yeah, we are.
Yep, we are. The inventory is so short right now that it's just created that supply and demand.
The month supply of inventory. Again, each week we've kind of been giving you these little statistic parts of it here. Again, if you're in the 0 to 150,000, it's less than a month supply of inventory. 150 to 250, less than a month supply of inventory. 350 to 5, it's a 1 month, 1.2 month supply of inventory. Above 350, it goes up. Right. But in that range down there again. So if you're sitting there with a home, or you're looking at properties in that range from 350 or less, and you're above that, you double your chance not finding a buyer at 350 above, because the activity mostly is taking place down here below it. So you see the same thing, I suppose, Dan, in terms of inspections of all ranges of properties, don't you? HUD, you do HUD. Would you do those kind? You don't do HUD.
I'll
those
inspect
kind. You do
anything. I inspected a straw bale home last week. I'll inspect a yurt.
That's a good one.
Yeah, straw bale. We haven't heard of those in a long time, have we? Straw bale homes.
Those are very energy efficient, right? And
I remember inspecting one of those once that I think it was in the 90s outside. And the place, a lot of them have no air conditioning because they just plain didn't need it. And I can remember going in that house in the afternoon when I know it was in the high 90s outside, and it was still 65 degrees inside that house.
Wow.
Yeah.
That would go up if people are going in and out a lot, but still, that was pretty impressive. Yeah.
Do you see a lot of changes over time now in terms of construction and what's out there that you're inspecting?
Yeah, and a lot. Of course, what always changes for us is the building materials, and
Sure.
and that's one of the biggest things because as a builder, I mean, I can remember building, and you're using the material of the day. This is what
absolutely.
everybody's using. This is the newest, bestest product, and all that kind of stuff. You build the house, you take off for your next one, and you don't look back. As an inspector, we see how all those products hold up over time.
Absolutely.
And so there are a lot of products out there that were just the next greatest thing that just didn't pan out.
Okay. And you would see those. So, yeah.
Absolutely.
That's why people remodel, get rid of some of that stuff and start over,
That's
right?
why over time he goes in that house and he says, got you there.
But what's really important...
I've seen that before.
What's really important in this first segment is pre-sale inspection. Again, if you want to sell something and you have any questions...
You're in that sales
you got to
mode.
do it.
Yeah.
It just really makes a lot of sense. The Real Estate Show, we're with Dan Huckins today from Visual Home Inspections, presented by Arvar. We're coming right back to KMED, AM 1440, FM 106.7. Hey, right after this, the Real Estate Show rolls along on KMED today. It's July the 23rd. Pete Belcaster and Joe Brett, the real estate guys, with you. Hey, next week here on the show, we're going to have a terrific show with Lance and Tara Landers of Ionic Estate Sales, and we're going to chat about how you do estate sales today, because I'm sure, if you've got elderly parents or yourself, or you want to downsize, whatever, and you want to have an estate sale, everybody says, I'm going to do it myself. Or the best one, my children are going to do it for me. That one. Anyway, so we'll have stories. You think we're having stories today with Dan and home inspections. Wait till you hear about estate sales next week.
I think if I conducted my estate sale, we could pretty much just call it a garage sale.
Well,
you do it in a weekend.
You could do yours. You would not need to hire Lance or Tara to do your estate sale.
I don't like to live with a lot of material burdens. Let's just say that.
If I did that, I'd hire him. I mean, they do such a good job, and you're going to hear that story next week. Today here on the show, Dan Huckins, who's from Visual Home Inspections, has been a home inspector and commercial inspector in the Rogue Valley for many years and teaches for the Rogue Valley Association of Realtors. And so he's with us today here on the show. In our first segment, again, pre-sale inspection of your house. If you think, I think that's really good for the sellers. Don't wait for the buyer to do it. Take control of your sale yourself, and fork over that money to do it. It's probably well
to arm yourself with that knowledge. Yeah.
You can justify your price better, et cetera, et cetera. Well, we're going to switch gears on that one, Dan. I got to ask you, since you're inspecting the issue of recreational marijuana, what are you seeing in the world out there in terms of inspections? Because there are people, remember, I've gone to classes where they show these indoor grows, how they've ruined homes, and then people try to sell them, and they do all sorts of things with it. Tell me what you see in the world in inspections in homes that have either been grows, are grows, or what's that story about like that? What's
happening now is a lot of those issues used to take place actually before it was legalized, because people were growing it in their house, and so then you had
to hide it.
Very high humidity and a lot of issues involved with that, and the smell, it penetrates. I mean, it's really in the walls and everything else. Since it's been legalized, though, there's probably less of that because they don't have to hide it. And so we're actually seeing, everybody sees the big fences going up everywhere, but also actual greenhouses or buildings for growing in. So areas that are, I've inspected some. I have no idea how much money they spend, but just incredible climate control, amazing grow rooms. So those areas like that, they've got the climate control and everything to control the humidity and the temperature and everything. So, and it's set up as that. Now, I don't know. But they're not necessarily in homes like you're seeing. I guess is that what I heard you say, though? That's really good to hear, isn't that? Yeah. That's I'm glad to hear that. I've seen some in homes, but most of them are in a separate building or an area where it's for that, because they don't have to hide it now. Have you? And I think that's really good. Have you seen where they have ruined homes, though, for previous kinds of growing in them? Do you see that kind of thing a lot? Is that a problem? Nothing that I personally haven't inspected one that it's like, this was a grow house. You can walk into houses and kind of suspect, maybe, but from any of the, any of that kind of stuff was mostly, again,
Okay.
before it was
Right.
legalized,
Do you-
and they would have
all
to
right.
tell you that
Okay.
this
I
was a
gonna
drug house.
Do you put that into your inspections? If you see that, come across that in an inspection?
Yeah, normally what we would say as a home inspector, the M word, mold.
Mold is more than marijuana. I guess that's going to more problems.
If you want a deal killer,
right.
you just got one right there.
Forget marijuana. We got to talk about mold.
And
Yes,
so that's one
absolutely.
of those things. Mold likes. I'm not an expert on mold, but it basically likes what we like. And a food source, a nice temperature and moisture. Well, the food source and the nice temperature is always there.
Yeah.
So as a home inspector, we're looking for the moisture.
Yeah.
If you got moisture, you got that. So we're looking for those types of conditions that are conducive to that.
And do you see a lot of mold?
Yeah.
That's a real problem, isn't it?
Yeah, I do. It's there's a lot of indications of things. There's a lot of areas where in the attic or in the crawl space, a lot of times if we see a lot of mold in the attic, then that's a good indication a lot of times that there's a water problem under the house because the vapor, it migrates up through the walls and everything into the attic where it just grows and nobody ever looks at it.
Indeed.
So, you see it around.
If I'd had my pre-sale inspection, I would have caught that before the buyer comes in and catches it and says, "Well, I'll give you $40,000 less because of the mold in there." And those kinds of things can happen.
The nice thing nowadays is that we take so many pictures and stuff, we don't even have to say mold. We can say there's indications here of excessive moisture or whatever. Snap a picture. You can call it what you want, but here's what it looks like.
Mold is one of those problems. Let me ask you about roofs. The roof of your home, because those are deal killers too. I mean, many times people want you to pay for the new roof. If you haven't taken care of your roof, do you? How much do you inspect a roof actually when you go out and do this?
Oh, always. You want to look at the roof good. I mean, the water is the blessing and the scourge of everything. So you want to keep it out. So we always get up on the roof, or sometimes you can't get on it, and you look at it from the ground, or a remote control camera, or whatever means you want to use. But roofs, probably one of the most detrimental things that we see on roofs is multiple layers. People
you just put layer after layer of roof on it.
And, they can save money by putting the roof over the old roof. Well, what people don't think about, or anybody that's ever, lifted a bundle of shingles knows how much that weighs, and it takes 3 of those to cover an area 10 feet by 10 feet. Yeah. So you're adding a massive amount of weight to your roof when you're doing multiple layers. Plus, you're trapping so much heat in that your shingles that you just put on aren't going to last as long.
Why would someone not pull? Why would you do that?
Save money.
But how could you lay a new layer over a roof that's already there?
Oh, you can tell when you look at it too. It doesn't look like it's just nice and smooth like it should be. The other thing too that a lot of people don't think about is that a lot of manufacturers will void their warranty. So you may put brand new shingles on a new roof and you instantly don't have a warranty because the manufacturer says, if you installed them over the old ones, you got nothing. Yeah, I don't know if they're all that way, but that's pretty typical. So it's another thing people don't think about.
I'd put a new roof on my house.
Yep, you got to be glad that my old wood shingles have finally gone the way of the
we both got rid of wood shingles off our house.
And that's the other thing, because a lot of times if you had shingles or shakes and you had skip sheathing or something like that, well, it's a lot more expensive because now they got to lay down sheathing and everything. That's a real added expense. But I've seen several layers of asphalt shingles over the top of wood shakes.
No.
Oh, yeah.
Really?
So now you've got a lot of weight over without much support. But also, if you never strip the old roof off, you never get an opportunity to look at the sheathing to see if there's any damage or anything.
And I'm not a contractor, but it just doesn't make sense to me to put brand new stuff on top of old crud.
It's not a good idea.
It's rotted and aged and been up there for 20, 30 years.
They do that on roofs, obviously, and they do it on floors because I found, layers of when I was doing my floors, I found wood in the bottom of those 4 or 5 layers of linoleum and a rug, and I'll never forget that. Oh, I couldn't believe it.
Well,
So,
now that's one thing that sometimes is a good decision, simply because if you've got old flooring material that may be asbestos or
right.
something like that.
Yes, that's true.
So for the expense and the everything, you don't want to create that dust. You don't want all that stuff.
Right.
So sometimes it is a easier solution to just encapsulate it. Cover it with
up.
the new material. You're perfectly fine. The only way the asbestos is really harmful if it's airborne and you're breathing it.
Well, they were good at doing that. Let me tell you. In my house, they were good at that. Well, it's interesting to listen to you as we go through home inspections because, it's part of the deal. And the better prepared you are on both sides, buying and selling, the better the transaction's going to go and know what you're up against. It's not impossible to overcome these by any means.
We need to go take one of Dan's classes and
we should do that.
get some of the
It's really
scoop
good.
on all this. Get some more scoop.
If he works for Arvar doing these for
Yeah,
Arvar, he's pretty
that's
good
good
at it. I
source.
can see that. The Real Estate Show got one more segment to go. We're with Dan Huckins from Visual Home Inspections. Show today presented by the Rogue Valley Association of Realtors. We're coming right back to KMED this afternoon, right after this. Real Estate Show rolls on KMED. July the 23rd is our day. Pete Belcastro with you here in the Real Estate Show. Next week, we're going to talk about estate sales with Lance and Tara Landers from Ionic Estate Sales next week here on the Real Estate Show. So lots going on as we head into August. And my goodness, it's going to be football season pretty soon again. And you know how crazy Joe and I get about that time of the year. Anyway, today here on the show, Dan Huckins from Visual Home Inspections is with us, and Dan is not only a home inspector as we've talked with him today, but he's also a commercial inspector. Now commercial buildings, at different times in the show, we have commercial brokers in here. Jeff Rogers, for example, was my good friend, and he's a commercial broker here with John L. Scott. So I kind of up to date on a little bit of that, so we talk about it a lot. But I never thought about in the world of inspections of commercial, because there's so much activity going on right now in commercial sales. It is remarkable. What's that like? What's the difference, I guess, Dan, for you as an inspector or buyers or sellers in terms of inspections in the commercial world?
I've probably it is getting busier in the commercial market too, because I've been doing probably one a week. Or so, and that's not always the case because obviously you're talking a lot more expensive properties.
Sure.
There's a lot more investors and things like that. But it is picking up definitely. So a lot is going on, and the commercial world is a lot different. Yeah, it's a whole different. You're talking in one respect, it's not such a personal thing. It's just business kind of thing.
Yeah.
But also you're typically talking. Instead of talking a few $100,000, you might be talking millions of dollars.
So, say example, you would do in a commercial, say, inspection on apartment complexes, for example, or I don't know. You could sell any building, I guess, would come in that way. But you go through a lot more in an inspection for that. It's a lot more money, obviously, but you do a lot more for the commercial inspections, don't you?
Yeah, with the commercial inspection, there's a lot more research. There's a lot more. They may have a commercial kitchen. They may have things like that, and they're wanting cost estimates. So where we don't typically provide estimates that much in a home inspection, in a commercial inspection, they want to know things like 5 years from now, stuff that I need to do 5 years from now. What's that going to projected cost? They want to know that you've got $250,000 of HVAC equipment on the roof that's going to need to be, that's old.
Sure.
The parking lot, it's not a $10,000 thing, it's an $80,000 thing to fix. So they want to know those kind of estimates. They want more research as far as the area, the storm drainage, So
you go in that much detail, and I don't blame you, obviously, because if you're going to spend that kind of money, you probably need that information. It's the same with appraisers, isn't it? In terms of commercial appraisers, I've had commercial appraisals done, and they really go into much more depth and detail. I mean, you do a lot more. You talk to people. I mean, you do much more
to
get that information because I guess the the sellers or whoever is hiring you needs that information to make a smart decision.
Yes, and often they're out of the area. And so I'm their eyes. So, they want more information. You're interviewing tenants. You're interviewing people around there. I did an inspection a couple weeks ago where I went to the county departments. I went to the city departments. I got some of my best information from the local museum, from the lady that grew up there and knew a lot of history. So and they appreciate that they need that kind of feedback and that kind of information.
What are you getting from, I know you've been teaching classes now in both commercial and home inspections to agents and things like that. What are their questions? I mean, what kind of reaction do you get, especially because it seems to be it's a competitive business, a supply and demand business, and the more knowledge you get, obviously, the better prepared you are. What kind of reaction are you getting from all of that?
Very good. Very good. They like it. To me, I mean, my goal is always to have, the best relationship as possible between the agents and the people who often ruin their deals for them. Yeah. That's the bad part about it. We are the bearers.
It's a team, and it takes a team to do this. I've really learned that. Yeah. You got to have the lender, the inspector, the agent, all that together to make this work.
Yeah, we are the bearer of bad news. But a lot of it is that I try to teach is understanding why we say what we say and what that means. There are a lot of things that that they hear all the time, and I hear, I'll hear agents say, well, this is nothing. Do you even have to say anything? It's kind of like putting in my report, there's trees hanging over the house, damage is possible.
Right.
Well, a year or two ago when we had that big windstorm, I had a client that was 5 days away from closing and had a big tree come down and split their house in half.
Well, that's true. I had a big limb taken off my house because I didn't want it to fall on it. I know that's smart to do that thing. Well, before we get out of here, I just want to kind of review for our listeners with you kind of the highlights of what you said today. So just because it's so important, because I mean, inspections are part of every deal, and there are hundreds and hundreds of deals every month go on in the two counties. So you're saying, okay, a pre-sale inspection is a smart thing.
Always.
And we need to do that. If you're thinking about selling, do it. Pre-sale inspection. You're also saying, most of us say, oh, we can have an inspection done in 10 working days. You're saying we need to be a little bit more, business is what it is, and we should extend that out a little bit further, at least to 15 days, maybe even to 20.
Yeah, if possible.
Yeah. And the world of marijuana is out there in the inspection world that you see also, and you've seen it all.
I remember it going from people buying an acre and saying, "Well, we want to raise goats," and then it went to, "Well, no, we can make more money by growing hops. We can make $20,000 to $40,000."
Right.
And now it's like, no, we can make $1.2 million. Yeah. So it's changed. It's always changing.
It's so interesting as we've gone through this and how it's affected real estate. We're going to hear from Lennox Scott, who's in Medford this week, and we're going to hear some of his comments about that, if it's affecting real estate in different places. I guess what the demand, though, here in the Valley, you say you see it in the commercial side as well. There's a lot of activity going on. The economy is definitely improving here. The demand for housing continues. There's still rentals. We're seeing the Housing Authority construct some things. But we're still in a world of hurt here in terms of housing, and we're not out of it yet. And now the issue of affordability is becoming more and more because we just don't have any inventory to sell to people who really need it in the certain price categories that it is. Dan Huckins, Visual Home Inspections. You can look them up. Thank you for being here. Always a pleasure to visit with you.
Thank you for having me.
You'll come back again and we'll do it again. We'll update you on what's going on. That'll do it for the Real Estate Show today. For KMED, for Pete and Joe. Hey, have a great week, everybody, and God bless. We'll see you next Saturday right here on KMED.
You've been listening to the Real Estate Show on KMED AM and FM radio, presented by John L. Scott Real Estate of Southern Oregon, along with All Cities Property Management, the Home Builders Association of Jackson County, Ditech Mortgage, the Jackson Soil and Water Conservation Conservation District and the Rogue Valley Association of Realtors. For guest information or to watch a past show, visit us online at realestateshoworegon.com. Join us again next weekend for Southern Oregon's one and only real estate show on KMED.